On World News tonight, the CIA and the FBI on the state of Al-Qaeda. They say there is no evidence of any cells here. An ABC News exclusive. Changing the bankruptcy laws, it will be tougher for individuals to abandon their debt. The Congress makes new rules. Some of the country's biggest baseball stars subpoenaed to appear before Congress. What does Congress have in mind? The new technology that jams cell phones. It is not legal here, but it is very effective. And good night to a competitor who was very tough indeed.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight with a risk assessment. The U.S. intelligence community has struggled for years to understand the makeup and the danger from Al-Qaeda, which is still the #1 terrorist organization in American minds. Today, ABC News has obtained a report which says that neither the FBI nor the CIA can find any evidence that Al-Qaeda units, so-called sleeper cells, are operating inside the U.S. Our investigative unit called the FBI, which confirmed this for us, and here to give us all of the details is our chief investigative reporter, Brian Ross. Brian?
Peter, the report is 32 pages long, and it concludes that while there is no doubt Al-Qaeda wants to hit the U.S., its capability to do so is unclear. For all the worry about Osama bin Laden's sleeper cells and agents in the United States, a secret FBI assessment concludes it knows of none. The 32-page document obtained by ABC News says flatly, we have not identified any true sleeper agents in the U.S. The report seems to contradict the sleeper cell description prosecutors gave to 6 men in Lackawanna, New York. And the FBI has never publicly revealed its failure to find any true sleeper cells in the U.S. This is what Director Robert Mueller said on February 16th, the same day the report was issued.
Finding them is the top priority for the FBI, but it is also one of our most difficult challenges.
The report does cite several individuals who have come under suspicion as potential sleeper agents, including a member of the Saudi Arabian Air Force training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. The Saudi was sent home after it was discovered he provided information to this Al-Qaeda figure in Saudi Arabia, including, according to the report, coordinates on landmarks in the U.S.
It's not surprising because we believe the Saudi military is infiltrated at the junior officer level in Saudi Arabia. And there are so many of them that come here for training.
The report also says Al-Qaeda is shifting tactics because its members are now aware of airport profiles singling out adult Arab males. Instead, women, married couples with children, and non-Arab-looking men are being actively recruited, according to the FBI report.
We have reason to believe, I think, that techniques like that and others that we shouldn't talk about are well known to terrorists around the world.
The FBI says it takes no comfort in the lack of evidence about what it is not seeing. And the report suggests that instead of actual sleeper agents laying in wait, Al-Qaeda may rely on disaffected Americans or other sympathizers who, Peter, might pick easier, softer targets. They suggest perhaps shopping malls.
Many thanks, Brian. Brian Ross from our investigative unit. On the subject of intelligence, the New York Times reported this morning that a report on American intelligence about Iran's alleged nuclear weapons capability is inadequate. The Bush administration accuses Iran of pursuing nuclear weapons. Iran says it isn't true, but poor intelligence is a very big issue. And so we asked our national security correspondent, Martha Raddatz, to work on this today. What did you find?
Well, Peter, this report is still in draft form. It's not due out until the end of the month, and no one I talked to had seen it.
The Times says one source described American intelligence on Iran as scandalous, given the relative openness of the country. A senior administration official tells ABC News the failure is in human intelligence, spies on the ground. Today, the president would not directly answer questions about the commission report.
I think it's very important for the United States to continue to work with our friends and allies, which believe that The Iranians want a nuclear weapon.
Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said today she had not seen the report that suggested it would not change her mind.
There is enough evidence that there are problems with Iran's civilian nuclear power ambitions.
The commission report could have serious consequences for the U.S. If a presidential commission here is not impressed with intelligence, what are the chances that U.S. allies will be?
Given the intelligence failure that we had with Iraq, I think the administration is simply not going to be able to convince much of the rest of the world that Iran is working on atomic bombs.
The administration is also awaiting a report from the National Intelligence Council, Peter, but if you will recall, the National Intelligence Council was the group that was so certain that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction.
Many thanks, Martha. Martha Raddatz at the Pentagon today. Speaking of Iraq, in Iraq today, progress and the usual violence. The U.S. said today there are now 2,000 separate reconstruction projects going on. It is, as we've said before, hard to get out in the country and record them. And here's the day's body count. 15 bodies found south of Baghdad, all decapitated. An Iraqi soldier died and 30 American contractors were wounded when a suicide bomber drove a garbage truck near a hotel early this morning, and an American soldier was killed when a small bomb exploded near his patrol. Still overseas, the Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi today disagreed with the U.S. again about the shooting in Baghdad last Friday. An Italian intelligence agent and an Italian journalist were wounded. Actually, the journalist was wounded and the intelligence agent was killed. Mr. Berlusconi said today U.S. forces did know that the Italians were on their way taking her to the airport, which contradicts what the U.S. has said so far. And now home again for a very big story which is going to change a lot of lives. The nation's bankruptcy laws are about to change, making it harder for consumers to escape altogether from their debts. Retailers, banks, credit card companies have been seeking the changes for years. They get stuck with billions of dollars in unpaid bills. The Senate has been taking up the bill this evening. The House has already passed it. There is a lot of talk in both chambers about personal responsibility. Here's ABC's Linda Douglas.
The bankruptcy bill comes wrapped in a message of personal responsibility. Congress is saying it should not be easy to escape paying your bills.
Opportunistic debtors who have the means to repay use the law to evade personal responsibility.
Bankruptcy was created as a ladder to greater economic opportunity. It should not be an escape hatch to avoid responsibility.
The bankruptcy bill would force debtors who have some money to pay something back to their creditors. All who apply for bankruptcy would be subject to a means test.
Look at the income of the person, look at the debts of the person, and determine if they can actually afford to pay something.
Democrats argue the bill places an added burden on people who've been wiped out by a crisis: divorce, job loss, medical bills.
The credit card companies want this law so they can squeeze every last dollar out of decent, hard-working, play-by-the-rules people.
They get an incidence of cancer, they run up those bills, and what does this bill do? It's going to make them indentured servitude to the credit card companies, and we call that fairness?
The clerk will call the roll.
The bank and credit card industries have been trying to get this bill passed for 8 years. With Republicans in solid control, they will finally succeed.
Republicans beat back every amendment to the bill, including one that would prevent millionaires from dodging their creditors.
Though the bill will affect everyone who files for bankruptcy, it is aimed at those who abuse the system. Roughly 5% of those people whose debts are forgiven under bankruptcy law could afford to repay something. Senators urge consumers to avoid too much debt. Experts say that will not be easy in today's world of easy credit.
Americans are a lot more comfortable with debt today than they were a generation or two ago. And it creates a situation where they're particularly vulnerable when some adverse economic event occurs.
More than 1 million households are expected to declare bankruptcy this year. Linda Douglas, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
We're going to keep Linda in place for a moment because the Congress is going to hold hearings on illegal drug use in baseball. First, the House of Representatives asked some of the biggest names in baseball to testify willingly. 7 players on the list, including Mark McGwire, who once held a single-season record for home runs, and Jose Canseco, who recently wrote a tell-all book about steroids. Some of the players said yes, some of them said no. And so today, Congress issued subpoenas to compel them to testify. Linda Douglas is still there. So what's Congress got in mind?
Well, the message here is, the message that Congress is trying to send to the baseball industry is, look, you went after Pete Rose for gambling, but no one has gone after those players who've allegedly taken steroids. So if baseball's not going to hold them accountable, Congress will, and send a message about drug use to young people looking at sports.
Now, late today, Major League Baseball and the Players Union, which don't have an awful lot in common most of the time, each together said they're going to resist these subpoenas. What's that about?
Well, the members of Congress are hoping that this isn't really true. The players are saying, look, this is a matter inside of baseball. This is an excessive misuse of congressional power. We won't show up. And that would leave the committee with a choice if they really don't show up. Do they want to seek to cite them for contempt of Congress? That's very serious. They haven't made that decision yet.
Many thanks. Many thanks. Linda Douglas on Capitol Hill. When we come back this evening, why your car is less fuel efficient than maybe you thought it was, the dispute about government mileage estimates. The new technology to block that irritating cell phone next to you, it works wonderfully, but it's illegal here. And at the end of the broadcast tonight, a word of tribute to a competitor. Dan Rather is signing off.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Big Lots.
Other news, this was a significant day in Michael Jackson's child molestation trial. The singer's accuser faced him in court for the first time. He's 15 years old now. And today he said his parents initially approved of him sleeping in Mr. Jackson's bedroom when he was 13. The White House said today it is not going to tap the country's strategic petroleum reserve in order to lower the price of oil. Oil keeps going up, as you know, nearly $55 a barrel today. But the White House says the reserve is for emergencies only. It's been an administration position before. In Ohio today, President Bush said the higher gas prices are another reason Congress should pass legislation adopting Mr. Bush's, energy policies. The rising gas prices have made Americans a good deal more conscious about the mileage they look for when they go to buy a car. Just a couple of years ago, mileage was often quite low on the list of priorities. Now the American Automobile Association says car owners are getting fewer miles per gallon than the official government figures indicate. Here's ABC's Lisa Stark.
I feel cheated with this.
Sarah Garden, who drives 100 miles a day, said her Mercury Mariner doesn't get the mileage promised on the EPA sticker.
I would not have bought this car if I'd known that it was only going to get around 20 miles to the gallon, 22 if I'm lucky.
I think it would be better for consumers to understand what they can truly expect out of their vehicle.
The government began requiring mileage estimates on new cars 30 years ago. Its own test assumes people drive no faster than 60 miles an hour, don't use air conditioning, and don't make quick trips to the store. The formula hasn't changed much, but driving conditions have. AAA runs its own mileage tests. In this one, John Nielsen drove a Chevy Cobalt and compared his mileage to the EPA estimate.
The EPA estimated this to be 17% more efficient than it actually is.
AAA also found, for example, that the Chevy Trailblazer, which EPA says averages 17.7 miles a gallon, actually gets 13.6. The Chrysler PT Cruiser, EPA says 24.5. AAA found 17.5. And the Nissan Altima, EPA estimates 25.7 miles a gallon, AAA 22.3. Some in Congress have introduced a bill to require the EPA to be more accurate, a big deal for many drivers.
It's all about your pocketbook because you put $2 a gallon gas in your car and you better get the miles per gallon you expect.
The auto industry insists there's nothing wrong with the EPA's numbers, saying the estimates are meant to be estimates. But even the EPA admits its formula is outdated.
We believe that adjustments need to be made. I really cannot tell you that the adjustments are going to be 10%, 20%, or 30%.
For now, drivers like Sarah Garten are finding driving her car is costing more than she ever expected, about an additional $500 a year. Lisa Stark, ABC News, Washington.
There's some more on gas mileage and those EPA ratings at abcnews.com. And that is Mount St. Helens up there in the background. It was after this broadcast last night when Mount St. Helens in Washington had its first significant eruption in months. The volcano sent steam and ash 7 miles into the air, leaving a fine dusting of ash 125 miles away. Scientists said one more time they do not expect a massive eruption like the one that killed 57 people nearly 25 years ago. When we come back this evening, the new technology to jam cell phones, very popular overseas. So who will use it here? The cellular telephone is about to pass the traditional telephone in popularity. The industry projects that later this year, more Americans will be using cell phones than using landlines. New technology, of course, has a way of spawning even newer technology, and so just as the number of cell phones is growing, so is the use of jamming devices to block them. Here's ABC's Jake Tapper.
Cell phones are ubiquitous in America now. A whole lot of energy is spent on instructing those inconsiderate people not to talk on their cell phones at inappropriate times. Before movies are shown,
It's inconsiderate cell phone ban.
during some Broadway shows.
I would just like to take this minute to ask you to turn off your cell phones.
It's terribly selfish, and I wish that there were ways to prevent it.
There are. Cell phone jammers send a signal on the same frequencies as cell phones, blocking transmissions. The biggest jammers cover a radius of almost a mile. Jamming is big business in Japan at theaters, at the parliament in India, and churches in Mexico.
This is the first I've heard of it. I think it sounds like a great idea.
Sorry, cell phone jammers are illegal in the United States, punishable by an $11,000 fine and up to a year in prison. The cell phone industry supports the ban.
It's stealing. People paid a lot of money for their cell phones. Companies paid a lot of money to have right to the airwaves.
But ban or not, cell phone jamming manufacturers in other countries say the devices are here.
I can show you everyday requests that I have from the States. I can show you now, from today, from yesterday, from last week, from last year.
So who's using them? Many business travelers suspect some hotels of illegally jamming cell phones, so guests use the hotel phones, which hotels make a lot of money on.
Security officials use them, legally, as a precaution against explosives triggered by cell phones, like those used in Spain 1 year ago. But the government says the widespread use of jammers could wreak havoc here.
How's your stomach ache, buddy?
There are a lot of healthcare professionals. There are a lot of moms and dads. There are a lot of people who need to be in contact 24/7.
And right now, there's no easy way to jam those calls that are just irritating.
During the campaign, I said that we'll begin the process.
And ones go through. Jake Tapper, ABC News, Washington.
When we come back, a tribute to a great competitor. Finally this evening, a word about Dan Rather, who is just about winding up his last night as the anchor of the CBS Evening News. You've surely heard about that. Dan, more than any other newsman in America, I think, has always made news as well as covered it.
Take your hands off of me.
Dan Rather?
Unless you intend to arrest me, don't push me, please.
Though that was not necessarily his intention.
The American negotiating team left with the president.
We have competed against each other for a long time, and in a general sense, as he gives up being an editor and goes back to full-time reporting, we still will. He is one tough competitor.
Live from Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China. Good evening.
A couple of years ago, I heard that Dan had actually taken a nap one afternoon when we were all in Iraq. Thank goodness, I thought. We don't have to go 100 miles an hour for a little while to stay ahead of him. And we weren't always ahead of him either.
Have you had any connections to Al-Qaeda?
Dan's long record at CBS has taken him through fascinating times and memorable places. All those hurricanes he loves.
And we're on the upside of the hurricane, which is
Through Vietnam.
the newest troops in...
And through the Washington years with President Nixon.
The president has no intention of handing over the tapes.
Tonight, we have new documents and new information.
When Dan and CBS recently fell short in their reporting on President Bush's military record during Vietnam, we were bound to find fault, but took no pleasure in the pain that it caused our competitors.
So I want to say personally and directly, I'm sorry.
For many of us, being a reporter turned out to be a calling. It is identity for Dan. And he would be the very first to reflect, as all serious reporters do, that this opportunity to work on behalf of the public interest has been an unusual privilege. Dan and I are also friends, and so it goes without saying that we wish him nothing but the best. That is our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. I hope we'll see you here again tomorrow. Good night.